12 years after the fire took everything, Solange Carter thought she'd outrun the flames. She was wrong. The real burning was just about to begin, and this time it would consume 2 hearts, not 1. There are moments in life that split your world into before and after. For Solange Carter, that moment came on a freezing January night in Dover, Delaware, when everything she loved went up in flames. Welcome back to Tales That Echo, where love stories don't just warm the heart, they set it ablaze, burn through every defense, and rise from the ashes stronger than before. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button now, because what unfolds between Solange Carter and Adrian Vale isn't just a love story. It's a reckoning 12 years in the making. January 14th. Dover, Delaware. The kind of cold that bites through windows and settles into your bones like it plans to stay forever. 17-year-old Solange woke to smoke. Not the faint smell of something burning in a neighbor's kitchen, not the distant char of a controlled fireplace. This was thick, choking, the kind of smoke that turns air into poison and makes your lungs scream for mercy. She shot up in bed, eyes burning before they even opened. The hallway outside her room glowed orange through the crack under her door, a color that didn't belong in the middle of the night, a color that meant everything was wrong. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice came out strangled, weak. The smoke swallowed it whole. She rolled out of bed, hit the floor on her hands and knees like they'd taught her in school fire drills that always felt stupid and unnecessary. Stay low, cover your mouth, get out. But she couldn't get out, because her 12-year-old brother was still in his room across the hall. The heat pressed against her skin like hands trying to hold her back. The carpet beneath her palms was hot, actually hot, and she realized with a terror so sharp it cut through the smoke that the fire wasn't just in one room. It was everywhere. Noah! She crawled faster. Her bedroom door handle burned her hand when she grabbed it, but she barely felt it. Pain was distant. Pain was nothing compared to the image of Noah, trapped, alone, terrified. She burst into the hallway, and the world became hell. Flames climbed the walls like living things. The wallpaper their mother had picked out 3 years ago, pale blue with tiny white flowers, curled and blackened and disappeared. Family photos and cheap frames shattered from the heat. The ceiling above the staircase sagged, groaning, threatening to collapse and take the second floor with it. Solange couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. But her body knew where Noah's room was. Muscle memory from 1,000 nights of checking on him, bringing him water when he was sick, making sure he'd actually turned off his video games and gone to sleep. She reached his door, tried the handle, locked. "Noah! Noah, open the door!" Nothing. She threw her shoulder against it. Once, twice. The wood was hot enough to burn through her thin sleep shirt, but she didn't stop. On the 3rd hit, something gave. The door flew open and she tumbled inside. Noah sat on his bed, knees pulled to his chest, eyes wide and streaming tears. 12 years old and frozen with the kind of fear that stops your brain from working. He looked at her like he didn't recognize her through the smoke and the chaos and the nightmare that used to be their home. "So?" His voice was so small. She grabbed him, hauled him off the bed with strength she didn't know she had. His window. They had to get to his window. The stairs were gone. The hallway was an inferno. The window was the only way out. She dragged him across the room. He was crying, coughing, clinging to her like she was the only solid thing left in the universe. Maybe she was. The window stuck. Old paint sealed it shut. Their dad kept saying he'd fix it, kept putting it off, because there was always something more urgent, always next weekend, always later. There was no later anymore. Solange picked up Noah's desk chair and swung it with everything she had. The glass exploded outward into the freezing January night. She didn't feel the shards that bit into her hands, didn't feel the blood running hot down her wrists. She only felt Noah's weight as she shoved him toward the opening. "Climb out! Now!" What about Mom and Dad? What about... "Now, Noah!" He climbed. She didn't remember jumping. One moment she was in Noah's room, flames licking at the doorframe behind her. The next, she was in the snow outside, her brother's arms wrapped around her neck, both of them shaking so hard their bones rattled. Sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors appeared in windows, faces pale and horrified. Someone threw a blanket over them, Mrs. Chen from next door, her voice high and panicked, saying things Solange couldn't process. She watched their house burn, watched flames pour out of windows like water, watched the roof cave in with a sound like the world breaking, watched firefighters arrive too late, doing their best against something already lost. Her parents never came out. They found them later, after the fire was cold, after everything that mattered had turned to ash. Carbon monoxide, the investigators said. They never woke up, didn't suffer. Small mercy in a situation with no mercy at all. The space heater in the living room had been a Christmas gift. A discount model from a big box store, bought to help with the electric bill, because money was always tight and heating a whole house was expensive. It had a defect, a wiring problem, the kind of thing that should have been caught in quality control but wasn't. 37 people died that winter because of faulty heaters from the same manufacturer. 37 families destroyed because someone decided profit mattered more than safety. But Solange didn't know that yet. Didn't know about the lawsuits, the settlements, the corporate name buried in legal paperwork that she wouldn't see for years. All she knew was cold. Cold snow beneath her. Cold air in her lungs. Cold reality settling over her like a blanket made of ice. Noah looked up at her, face streaked with soot and tears, and asked the question that would define the rest of her life. "Are we going to be okay?" 12 years later, Solange Carter still checked every space heater she saw, unplugged them, moved them away from curtains, lectured people about safety standards and recalls and the importance of paying attention to warning labels. Her coworkers at Maplewood Senior Living Center thought it was quirky, endearing even, the woman who cared too much about fire hazards. They didn't know. She'd gotten good at not telling people, good at smiling when they asked about her family, good at changing the subject before anyone dug too deep into who she was and where she came from. At 29, she worked night shifts in Wilmington's Trolley Square neighborhood. 3 to 11, sometimes later when they were short-staffed. She wiped down tables in the dining hall, helped residents who couldn't sleep and wandered the halls looking for something they'd lost decades ago, held hands when the loneliness got too heavy. She was good at it, patient, kind, the sort of person who remembered birthdays and knew who liked their coffee black and who needed 2 sugars and cream. But Solange kept her own heart locked away, protected behind walls built from ash and survivor's guilt and the bone-deep knowledge that loving people meant losing them. She'd loved her parents, lost them. She loved Noah, and that love lived in her chest like a constant ache, a fear that never quite went away, no matter how many years passed or how safe they were. Because she'd made a promise that freezing January night, wrapped in an emergency blanket that smelled like smoke and death. I'll never let you face fear alone again. And she never had. Tonight, she sat beside Vivian Parker's bed in room 307. Vivian was 91, tiny as a bird, with papery skin and eyes that still sparked with something sharp. Lung cancer, stage 4. Weeks left, maybe days. Her family visited on Sundays, stayed for an hour, left looking relieved to escape. Solange stayed longer. Solange stayed longer. "You remind me of someone," Vivian whispered, her voice rattling in her chest. "Yeah? Someone good, I hope." Vivian's thin fingers squeezed Solange's hand. "Someone who carries too much." Solange walked to her car at 11:30, exhausted in the way that goes deeper than sleep can fix. She'd stopped having nightmares about the fire 3 years ago, stopped waking up choking on phantom smoke, stopped checking Noah's bedroom window to make sure it opened easily. She'd moved on, survived, built a life from nothing. That night, she dreamed of fire for the first time in 3 years. She woke gasping at 3 a.m., sheets tangled around her legs, the taste of smoke on her tongue. Her phone was ringing. A number. She answered. "Miss Carter? This is Wilmington General Hospital. Your brother has collapsed." Some phone calls change everything. This one changed Solange's entire understanding of what she was willing to sacrifice. Solange didn't remember getting dressed. Didn't remember grabbing her keys or running to her car or breaking every speed limit between her apartment and Wilmington General Hospital. The drive existed in fragments. Red lights she barely stopped for, empty streets that blurred together, her own voice whispering the same prayer over and over. "Please, please, please." She didn't know who she was praying to. Her parents were dead. God hadn't answered 12 years ago when it actually mattered. But the word kept coming anyway, desperate and useless. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty at 3:40 in the morning. She abandoned her car in a loading zone and ran. Fluorescent lights turned everything the color of sickness. The antiseptic smell hit her like a wall. Bleach and floor wax and the particular staleness of recycled air. She'd walked these halls 100 times professionally, visiting patients from Maplewood who ended up here, navigating the maze of corridors with easy familiarity. But never as the person with something to lose. Never as family. The emergency department receptionist looked up with practiced sympathy. "Name?" "Solange Carter. My brother, Noah Carter. They called me. They said he collapsed. Where is he?" The words tumbled out too fast, tripping over each other. The receptionist typed something, frowned at her screen. "He's been moved to cardiology, 4th floor. Someone will meet you there." Cardiology. His heart. Something was wrong with Noah's heart? The elevator took forever. Solange watched the numbers climb, 2, 3, 4, and tried to remember how to breathe. Tried to remember that people survived heart problems all the time, that modern medicine could fix almost anything, that Noah was 17 and healthy, and this was probably nothing serious. But the voice on the phone hadn't sounded like nothing serious. The doors opened. Dr. Elise Carter stood waiting. Solange had met Elise 6 years ago at a community health fair in Trolley Square. They'd bonded over cheap coffee and shared frustration with a medical system that treated poor patients like problems instead of people. Elise was Nigerian-American, mid-30s, with box braids she wore pulled back when she worked and kind eyes that missed nothing. She was also one of the best cardiologists in Delaware, and she was standing outside a patient room with an expression that made Solange's blood freeze. "Elise, it came out broken." Her friend stepped forward and caught her hands. "He's stable right now, awake, asking for you." "What happened?" Elise's jaw tightened. "Come with me. We need to talk before you see him." That's when Solange knew. Whatever this was, it wasn't nothing. It was everything. They sat in a consultation room that was too small and too bright. Elise pulled up scans on her tablet, images of Noah's heart in black and white and shades of gray that Solange didn't understand but knew weren't right. The muscle looked wrong, textured differently, scarred. "Arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy," Elise said quietly. "It's a genetic condition where the heart muscle gets replaced by scar tissue and fat. It causes irregular heartbeats, arrhythmias, that can be life-threatening." Solange stared at the screen. "He's 17. He plays basketball. He's never had heart problems." "It's progressive. Sometimes it doesn't show symptoms until adolescence or early adulthood. The physical exertion in gym class today triggered an arrhythmic episode. His heart rate hit 200 beats per minute. If the school nurse hadn't called 911 immediately." She didn't finish. "She didn't have to." "Can you fix it?" Solange's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Medicine? Surgery? There has to be something." Elise set down the tablet. "Standard treatment is medication to control the arrhythmia and an implanted defibrillator to shock his heart back into rhythm if it happens again. But Sol's case is progressing faster than typical. The scarring is extensive for someone his age." "What does that mean?" "It means medication might not be enough. It means he's high risk for sudden cardiac arrest." The words landed like punches. Sudden cardiac arrest. Noah, who texted her memes at midnight and complained about homework and dreamed about becoming a teacher, could just drop dead at any moment without warning. "There's an experimental treatment," Elise continued, "a procedure that uses targeted gene therapy and tissue regeneration to stop the progression and potentially reverse some of the damage. It's cutting edge, revolutionary. Early trials are showing incredible results." Hope flickered. Fragile, desperate. "Okay, so we do that. We do the experimental thing." Elise's expression shifted. "So, whatever it costs, I'll figure it out. I'll get a second job. It's only available at one facility." Something in her tone made Solange stop. "Where?" Elise hesitated. "Vale Medical Center." The name hit like a slap. Vale. Solange hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. She'd buried it, locked it away with the legal documents and settlement checks and everything else from the fire that she refused to think about. But she knew it like she knew the smell of smoke, knew it like she knew the sound of breaking glass. Vale Medical Corporation owned the subsidiary that manufactured the space heater, The defective piece of garbage that killed her parents and 35 other people before the recall finally happened. The company that paid her and Noah a settlement, enough to survive on, not enough to matter, in exchange for signing away their right to sue, to speak, to make noise. Blood money from the empire that destroyed them. And now, that same empire held the only treatment that could save Noah's life. "How much?" Solange whispered. Elise looked away. "The procedure costs $375,000. Insurance won't cover experimental treatment, and the waiting list is 18 months. Noah doesn't have 18 months. No, he doesn't." Solange stood, sat back down, stood again. Her hands were shaking. "I need to see him." "So, I need to see my brother, Elise." Her friend nodded and led her down the hall to room 408. Noah lay in a hospital bed that made him look smaller than he was. 17, but still young. Still her baby brother. Wires connected him to monitors that beeped steadily. His heart struggling but fighting. He opened his eyes when she walked in. "Hey, Sal." She made it 3 steps before her knees gave out. Noah tried to sit up. "Whoa, hey, I'm the one in the hospital bed." "Don't," her voice broke. "Don't make jokes right now." He went quiet, watching her, reading her the way he'd learned to do over 12 years of having only each other. "It's bad, isn't it?" She wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him everything would be fine, that this was just a scare, that he'd be home tomorrow and back to complaining about calculus homework by Monday. But she'd promised him 12 years ago that she'd never let him face fear alone. And facing fear meant facing truth. "Your heart is sick, Noah, but we're going to fix it." "How?" She took his hand, still warm, still alive, still hers to protect. "I don't know yet, but I will." She sat with him until he fell asleep. Watched the monitors track his heartbeat, watched his chest rise and fall, watched him exist in the fragile space between okay and not okay. 12 years she'd spent keeping him safe, checking smoke detectors, teaching him to swim, making him wear a helmet when he rode his bike, holding his hand through nightmares about the fire, building a life where nothing could hurt him again. And his heart had been betraying them both the entire time. Silently, invisibly. No smoke detector could catch it. No safety measure could prevent it. Have you ever received news that made the floor disappear beneath your feet? That moment when the world keeps spinning, but you've stopped completely? When everything you thought you knew about tomorrow just vanished? That's where Solange is right now. And family, if you've been there, if you know that specific terror, leave a comment, tell me about it. Because this story, it's not just Solange's. It's everyone's who's ever had to watch someone they love fight a battle they can't fight for them. At 5 a.m., Solange stood in the hospital bathroom and shattered. 12 years of strength crumbling against cold tile. 12 years of promises she couldn't keep. 12 years of surviving just to watch it all fall apart anyway. Her phone buzzed. Elisa's name on the screen. There might be another way, but you're not going to like it. Below it, a link to an article. Vail Medical announces Community Renewal Initiative. The photo showed a man with dark eyes and darker secrets. Adrian Vail. Some names carry weight. Some carry history. The name Vale carried both, and for Solange, it carried fire. She went home at 6 a.m. when the nurses insisted Noah needed rest, and so did she. Rest. Like sleep was possible. Like she could close her eyes and not see heart monitors and medical scans, and the word experimental flashing like a warning sign. Her apartment in Trolley Square was small. One bedroom for her, one for Noah. A kitchen barely big enough for two people. Furniture from thrift stores and Craigslist, but it was theirs. Built from nothing after the fire. Paid for with double shifts and sacrifice, and the settlement money she'd tried not to think about where it came from. She sat at her kitchen table as the sun rose over Wilmington and opened her laptop. Typed, Vale Medical Community Renewal Initiative. The article Elise sent appeared first. Professional photos, polished press release. Adrian Vale, 31, Chief Operating Officer of Vale Medical Corporation, standing at a podium announcing a new program designed to provide critical care to patients failed by the system. His eyes were dark, serious, the kind of face that looked good in photographs but revealed nothing. She scrolled past the corporate speak and found the details. The program would cover experimental treatments, cutting-edge procedures, cases like Noah's where insurance refused and time was running out. It sounded perfect. Too perfect. She clicked away from the article and typed something else. Vale Medical Corporation. Thornwell Manufacturing. Fire. Her hands shook on the keyboard. The search results loaded. She already knew what she'd find. Had seen it 12 years ago in legal documents she'd shoved in a drawer and tried to forget. But knowing and seeing were different things. January 14, fire victims reach settlement with Vale's subsidiary. Thornwell Manufacturing recalls 340,000 space heaters after defect linked to 37 deaths. Vale Corporation faces scrutiny over delayed safety response. She clicked the first article. Read words that tasted like ash. The space heater that killed her parents had been manufactured by Thornwell Manufacturing, a subsidiary of Vale Medical Corporation. The defect was a wiring issue. Simple, fixable, something quality control should have caught. But it didn't. Because catching it would have delayed production, would have cost money, would have hurt quarterly earnings. So they shipped the heaters anyway. Sold them at big box stores to families trying to save on heating bills. Families like hers. The first death happened in November, a house fire in Pennsylvania. Then 2 more in December. By January, the pattern was obvious. But Vale Corporation's legal team moved slowly, strategically. They investigated, consulted, weighed liability against profit. The recall happened in March, 2 months after the fire that killed Solange's parents. 2 months and 15 additional deaths, too late. The settlements came later. Quiet, efficient, legal documents that made everything feel sanitized and distant. Sign here, accept this amount, agree never to speak publicly about the incident or pursue further legal action. Solange had been 18, newly responsible for a 13-year-old brother, drowning in funeral costs and the reality that she had no parents, no safety net, nothing but Noah and whatever money she could scrape together. She'd signed, took the money, moved to Wilmington, started over, and spent 12 years trying to forget the name printed at the bottom of every document. Vale Medical Corporation. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward. Crossed the kitchen. Opened the drawer she never touched. the one stuffed with papers she'd kept out of obligation but refused to look at. Legal documents from 12 years ago, settlement agreements, death certificates, the official report from the fire investigation. She pulled them out, let them scatter across her kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. There it was, in black and white, the subsidiary connection, the corporate structure, the amount they'd decided her parents' lives were worth. $150,000. Split between her and Noah. Enough to survive, not enough to matter, not enough to replace what was taken. She grabbed the papers and threw them. They fluttered across the room like ash, like the remnants of her childhood home drifting on the wind, like everything the Vale family had burned and walked away from. The irony tasted like poison. The same empire that killed her parents now held her brother's life in its hands. The same corporation she'd spent 12 years hating was the only thing that could save the only family she had left. Her phone rang at 11 a.m. "Elise, you need to come back, now." Solange was in her car before the call ended. Noah's monitors looked wrong. The rhythm irregular, the numbers too high in some places, too low in others. He was awake but pale, exhausted, his body fighting a battle it was losing. A new doctor stood beside Elise, Dr. Rahman, cardiac specialist. He spoke in careful, measured tones about declining function and accelerated progression and the need for immediate intervention. "Weeks," he said, "not months. If we don't stabilize his condition soon." He didn't finish. They never finished the bad sentences. Solange sat beside Noah's bed after Dr. Rahman left. Her brother tried to smile. Failed. "I heard them talking," he whispered, "about the treatment, about how much it costs." "Don't worry about that." "So," I said, "don't worry about it." Elise appeared in the doorway, gestured for Solange to step outside. In the hallway, her friend's expression was harder than usual, professional, the look she wore when she had to deliver news that would hurt. "You saw the article I sent?" "I saw it. And?" Solange's jaw tightened. "You know what they did. You know what that company represents." "I know exactly what they did," Elise said quietly. "I know they killed your parents. I know they covered it up. I know they paid you to stay silent." She paused. "But Solange, does your pride matter more than Noah's life?" The question landed like a punch. "That's not fair." "No, none of this is fair. It's not fair that Noah is dying. It's not fair that the only treatment is controlled by the people who destroyed your family. It's not fair that you have to choose between your principles and your brother." Elisa's voice softened. "But you do have to choose, today, right now, because in a few weeks there won't be a choice anymore." Solange stood outside Vale Medical Center at 2 p.m. The building sat along the Wilmington riverfront like a monument to money and power, all glass and steel and perfectly manicured lawns. The kind of place where people didn't ask how much things cost, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. She'd never set foot inside. Didn't want to. Everything she hated existed behind those glass doors. But everything she loved was dying 3 miles away in a hospital bed. Cold October wind cut through her jacket. She thought about her parents, about the promise she made to Noah, about 12 years of survival and sacrifice and keeping them both alive through sheer stubborn will. 12 years ago,
I promised I'd never let him face fear alone.
I didn't promise I'd keep my dignity.
I didn't promise I'd stay unbroken.
I just promised he wouldn't be alone.
She pulled out her phone, stared at the article one more time. Adrian Vale's face, dark eyes, corporate polish, legacy built on secrets and blood money. What would you sacrifice for someone you love? Your pride? Your principles? The moral high ground you've been standing on for years? Where do you draw the line? And what happens when that line stands between you and saving a life? Family, I need you to sit with that question. Because Solange is about to cross a line she swore she'd never cross. And before you judge her, ask yourself what you'd do.
Drop a comment. Tell me where your line is. And don't forget to hit that subscribe and bell button.
She walked through the glass doors. The lobby was all marble and money, crystal chandeliers, expensive art on walls. A receptionist who looked like she'd never had a hard day in her life glanced up with practiced warmth. "Good afternoon. Do you have an appointment?" Solange's voice didn't waver. "Tell Adrian Vale that Solange Carter is here. Tell him I'm ready to make a deal." She expected a monster. She found something far more dangerous. A man who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. The waiting room cost more than her apartment. Leather chairs that probably had a name brand. A coffee table made of actual marble. Magazines so pristine they'd never been touched. Everything designed to remind you that you didn't belong here unless you had money or power or both. Solange sat on the edge of a chair and refused to sink into its expensive comfort. 15 minutes passed. 30. She was about to leave, pride finally overriding desperation, when a door opened and a woman in a perfect gray suit appeared. "Miss Carter, Mr. Vale will see you now." She followed the woman down a hallway lined with photographs. Vale Medical through the decades. Groundbreaking ceremonies. Ribbon cuttings. Charitable donations presented like trophies. And family photos. The Vales through generations. Serious faces. Old money. The kind of people who shaped cities and decided whose lives mattered. They stopped at a door. The woman knocked once. Opened it. "Miss Carter, sir." Solange stepped inside. The office was too big for one person. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the riverfront. A desk that looked like it belonged in a museum. Bookshelves lined with medical journals and leather-bound volumes that were probably worth more than she'd make in a year. And behind the desk, Adrian Vale. 31. Dark hair, darker eyes. He wore a suit that fit perfectly because it was probably custom-made. He moved with a kind of confidence that came from being taught since birth that he belonged in rooms like this. But there was something beneath the polish. Something wounded. Solange recognized it because she carried the same thing. He stood when she entered, gestured to one of the chairs facing his desk. "Miss Carter, please, sit." She stayed standing. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "You'd prefer to stand?" "I'm not here to be comfortable." A flicker of something crossed his face. Respect, maybe? Or surprise that someone would walk into his office and refuse the expensive chair. Fair enough. He sat back down, folded his hands on the desk. "I'm told you wanted to speak with me. Your community renewal initiative. Is it real?" He didn't blink at the bluntness. "Yes. You're offering experimental treatments to patients who can't afford them." "That's correct." "No strings attached?"
Now he did blink. There are always strings, Miss Carter. The question is whether you can live with them. She stepped closer to the desk. My brother is 17 years old. He has arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. His heart is failing. He needs the gene therapy procedure your facility offers. We can't afford it. Insurance won't cover it. And he doesn't have time to wait. Adrian watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. I've read your brother's case file, he said quietly. She froze. How? Dr. Elise Carter forwarded it this morning, with your brother's permission. He pulled up something on his computer, turned the screen so she could see. Medical records, scans, the same terrifying images Elise had shown her. Noah's case is exactly what the Community Renewal Initiative was designed for. Advanced treatment for patients failed by traditional systems. Hope fluttered, fragile and dangerous. So you'll help him? I'll make sure your brother gets the treatment. Best doctors. Immediate placement. No cost. It sounded too easy, too good. There was always a catch. What do you want in return? Adrian stood, walked to the window, looked out over the riverfront like he was choosing his words carefully. The initiative launches publicly next month. We need a spokesperson, someone real, someone whose story represents what we're trying to accomplish. Her stomach dropped. You want me? He turned to face her. People need to see that this program isn't just corporate charity. They need to see someone who's fought for survival and won, someone who understands what it means to be failed by a system that should protect you. The irony was suffocating. He wanted her to stand beside the Vale family and smile, to tell her story, sanitized and packaged, to make them look good, to be the face of redemption for the empire that killed her parents. You know who I am, she said slowly. You know what your family's company did to mine. Something shifted in his expression. Pain. Real and raw and quickly hidden. I know exactly what we did, Miss Carter. The admission hung in the air between them. Thornwell Manufacturing was my father's project. The cost-cutting, the delayed recall, the decision to prioritize profit over safety. His voice was carefully controlled. I was 19 when it happened. Away at college, I found out about the fires from news reports like everyone else. He paused. 37 people died because my father decided quarterly earnings mattered more than quality control. I've spent the last 12 years trying to fix what he broke, trying to prove that the Vale name can stand for something other than greed and negligence. Solange stared at him, searching for lies, for manipulation, for the monster she expected. She found a man who looked as tired as she felt. That's a nice speech, she said finally, but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't bring back the people who died. No, it doesn't. He met her gaze. Nothing I do will ever be enough, but doing nothing would be worse. So you want me to help you feel better about your family's crimes? I want you to help me prevent other families from experiencing what you did. She hated that it made sense. Hated that his logic was sound. Hated that she couldn't find a clean reason to say no that didn't involve her pride and her rage and 12 years of justified hatred. If I do this, if I become your spokesperson, Noah gets the treatment immediately, no matter what? You have my word. Your word. She laughed. It sounded bitter. Your family's word hasn't meant much in the past. He flinched. Good. Then let me put it in writing. A contract, legally binding. Noah receives full treatment regardless of your participation. But I'm asking, not demanding, that you consider helping us." She thought about Noah, pale in a hospital bed, monitors tracking a heart that was failing. She thought about her promise. "I'll never let you face fear alone. I want the contract today. I want confirmation that Noah starts treatment this week." "Done." She crossed to his desk, extended her hand. "Then we have a deal." His hand was warm when it closed around hers. The contact lasted a second too long. Something electric passed between them. Recognition of shared pain, maybe? Or just the strange intimacy of two people trapped in an impossible situation. Adrian's gaze dropped to a photograph on his desk. A young boy with the same dark eyes, maybe 8 or 9 years old, laughing. "My younger brother, Milo." Past tense. "He died when I was 19. Heart condition no one caught in time." He looked back at Solange. "I know what it means to lose someone you promised to protect. I know what it costs to carry that failure." She left 30 minutes later with a signed contract and a scheduled surgery date for Noah. She should have felt relieved, victorious even. She'd gotten what she came for. But walking through that marble lobby, past the expensive art and the receptionist's perfect smile, she felt like she'd sold something she couldn't get back. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it. The message loaded. A photograph attached. The fire that killed her parents. Time-stamped. Taken from across the street, an angle that shouldn't exist. Below it, 3 words. "He's not telling you everything." Solange had spent 12 years building walls. Adrian Vale dismantled them in 12 days, not with force, but with something far more dangerous, understanding. The stylist arrived at her apartment on a Tuesday morning with enough clothing to fill a boutique. "Mr. Vale sent me," the woman said brightly, wheeling in a rack of dresses, blazers, and shoes that probably cost more individually than Solange's monthly rent. "For the press conference on Friday, we want you to feel comfortable and confident." Solange stared at the rack. Designer labels she recognized from magazine covers. Fabrics that looked too delicate to actually wear. "I'm not wearing any of that." The stylist's smile faltered. "But Mr. Vale specifically—" "I don't care what Mr. Vale specifically requested. I'm not becoming someone else. You're hiring who I already am." 20 minutes of negotiation later, they compromised on a navy blazer that didn't feel like a costume and pants that fit well enough not to make her self-conscious. The stylist left looking mildly defeated, but professional. Solange looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same person, but wearing clothes that whispered money and access and belonging to a world she'd never been invited into. She looked like someone who deserved to stand on a stage. She hated it. Her phone buzzed. Adrian's number. "I heard you terrified my stylist. Thank you for not wearing the dress." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "I'm not your doll." "I know. That's why I chose you." She visited Noah before the press conference. Vale Medical had moved him to a private room that looked nothing like the standard hospital accommodations at Wilmington General. Bigger windows, better furniture, equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Monitors tracked every heartbeat with precision. Specialists rotated through every few hours. A care coordinator had actually sat with Solange for an hour, explaining the treatment timeline, the risks, the expected outcomes.
Noah looked better already, color returning to his face, the gray exhaustion fading.
"This place is insane," he said, gesturing around the room. "The nurse asked me what I wanted for lunch, like I was ordering at a restaurant. They have a menu, Sal, an actual menu with options."
She sat on the edge of his bed. "How are you feeling?"
"Tired. But good tired, like my body is actually resting instead of just fighting."
He squeezed her hand.
"Whatever you're doing, whatever deal you made, thank you." Guilt twisted in her chest. He didn't know about the press conference, didn't know she'd agreed to become the public face of the Vale family's redemption project. She'd tell him, eventually. Just not today. The press conference was held in Vale Medical's main atrium. Cameras, lights, microphones arranged on a podium like soldiers. Reporters filled rows of chairs. Local news, medical journals, a few national outlets interested in the story of a corporation trying to do good. Solange stood backstage with Adrian, her heart hammering against her ribs. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "The contract guarantees Noah's treatment regardless. If you want to walk away..." "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was terrified. He studied her face. "You're allowed to be nervous." "I'm not nervous. I'm angry. There's a difference." "Angry at me?" "Angry at the situation. Angry that I have to stand up there and pretend this is simple. Pretend your family's charity erases what they did." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I'm not asking you to pretend anything was erased. I'm asking you to help make sure it doesn't happen again." Before she could respond, a production assistant gestured, "2 minutes." They walked onto the stage together. The lights were blinding. Cameras clicked like insects. Solange forced herself to breathe. Adrian spoke first. Professional. Polished. He explained the Community Renewal Initiative with the ease of someone who'd given 1,000 speeches. He talked about medical innovation and corporate responsibility and the obligation to serve underserved communities. Then he turned to her. "But the real story isn't mine to tell. Solange Carter represents everything this program was created for. I'll let her speak for herself." She stepped to the microphone. Told her story. The fire, the loss, the 12 years of survival, Noah's diagnosis, the impossible choice between pride and saving his life. She told the version that had been sandpapered smooth. No mention of Thornwell manufacturing. No mention of defective heaters or corporate negligence. No blame. No accusations. Just a story about tragedy and resilience and the gratitude of a sister whose brother was getting a second chance. The reporters ate it up. Questions came fast. She answered them, smiled when appropriate, played the role she'd agreed to play, and hated herself a little more with every word. After 30 minutes, Adrian stepped in. "That's all the time we have. Thank you all for coming." They walked off stage together. Solange kept her expression neutral until they were behind closed doors. Then she leaned against the wall and tried not to scream. "You did well," Adrian said. "I lied to everyone about everything that matters." "You told your truth, just not all of it." "That's called lying." He didn't argue. The after-party was exactly as horrible as she expected. Wealthy donors sipping champagne that probably cost more than groceries. Business executives in suits discussing portfolios and investments. Everyone congratulating Adrian on his inspiring initiative.
A woman in pearls approached Solange. Such a moving story. You must be so grateful to the Vales. Grateful. Like they were doing her a favor instead of trying to buy forgiveness for killing her parents. Solange smiled. Grateful doesn't quite cover it. The woman didn't catch the sarcasm. 20 minutes of small talk later, Solange found a service exit and escaped. The rooftop was cold and empty and exactly what she needed. The Wilmington skyline glittered below. Traffic hummed in the distance. The Delaware River reflected city lights like scattered stars. She breathed. Actually, breathed for the first time in hours. I had a feeling you'd end up here. Adrian's voice behind her. She didn't turn around. You followed me. I noticed you left, thought you might want company, or solitude. I can go if... Stay. The word surprised her. He crossed the rooftop, stood beside her, not too close, loosened his tie like the expensive suit was suffocating him too. You hate this, he said. Not a question. I hate what it represents. So do I. She finally looked at him. You're the one who organized it. Doesn't mean I enjoy it. The performances, the networking, smiling at people who only care because it makes them feel good about themselves. He stared out at the skyline. My father loved this part. The galas, the publicity, the image management. He taught me how to work a room before I was 10 years old, how to make people feel important, how to say the right thing at the right time. Adrian's voice went quiet. I spent my childhood learning how to be him. I've spent my adulthood trying to unlearn it. Solange recognized the weight in his words, the specific exhaustion that came from carrying someone else's legacy. The nightmares stopped 3 years ago, she said suddenly. I used to wake up choking on smoke that wasn't there. Used to check the stove 3 times before leaving the apartment. Used to smell fire everywhere. She wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. Now they're back, ever since Noah collapsed. Like my brain remembered that nothing is ever really safe. Family, if you're still here, you know this moment. That conversation where someone sees past your armor, where the walls feel paper thin. Drop a fire in the comments if you've ever let someone dangerous get that close. Because Solange is about to cross a line she didn't know existed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She pulled it out. Adrian noticed the change in her expression. What is it? A text message. No words, just an attachment. She opened it. A scanned document. Vale Corporation letterhead. Dated 2 months before the fire that killed her parents. Memo. Thornwell heater situation. Recommend delayed recall to Q2 to protect quarterly earnings. Risk assessment acceptable. Liability contained. Signed, Richard Vale. But there was a second signature below it. A witness to the decision. Her blood turned to ice. The name was partially redacted, but she could make out enough letters. M. Webb. Below the signatures, a handwritten note. Adrian, handle this personally. RV. She looked up at Adrian. He'd gone pale. Solange. You knew. Her voice shook. You knew what your father did. You were involved. Let me explain. She stepped back. Was any of this real? Or am I just another problem you're managing? Some truths hide in plain sight. Others are buried so deep, digging them up feels like exhuming the dead. Solange was about to do both.
She didn't wait for Adrian's explanation. Left him standing on that rooftop, took the service elevator down, walked out of Vale Medical Center into the cold October night, and didn't look back. Her hands shook too hard to drive. She sat in her car in the parking lot and stared at the document on her phone. Read it again and again, looking for a different interpretation, a way for it to mean something other than what it obviously meant. Adrian's name, his father's handwriting. Handle this personally. He knew about the cover-up, not just after the fact, before, when it could have been stopped, when lives could have been saved, when her parents could have lived. Her phone rang. Adrian's number. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. She blocked the number. Then she pulled up the first mysterious photo, the one of the fire, taken from an angle that shouldn't exist. Studied it with new eyes. Someone had been watching that night, documenting, keeping evidence. Why? She zoomed in on the timestamp. January 14th, 3:47 a.m. The fire department hadn't arrived until 4:03. She remembered that detail from the official report. 16 minutes of burning before help came. But this photo was taken 12 minutes before the trucks arrived. Someone stood across the street with a camera while her house burned and her parents died, and they just watched. Took pictures. Didn't elt. Who does that? She saved the image to her laptop when she got home. Tried reverse image searching. Nothing. Ran it through every free forensic tool she could find online. The metadata had been scrubbed clean, except for the timestamp. Professional work. At 2 a.m., exhausted and furious and no closer to answers, she texted the only person she trusted completely. "Elise, I need your help. Can you meet me tomorrow?" The response came 30 seconds later. "Always. What's wrong?" "Everything." They met at a coffee shop in Trolley Square the next morning. Elise took one look at Solange's face and ordered 2 large coffees and a plate of pastries neither of them would eat. Talk. Solange showed her everything. The photograph, the memo, the mysterious text messages. Elise studied the documents with a doctor's precision. This memo, if it's real, is evidence of criminal negligence, maybe manslaughter. The fact that it exists at all means someone kept it for a reason. Adrian's name is on it. A note from his father telling him to handle it. That doesn't necessarily mean he participated. He was 19, in college. Then why not tell me? Why hide it? Elise didn't have an answer. The text mentioned something else, Solange said. File 714. What is that? I don't know, but the date is suspicious. January 14th, the day of the fire. They searched online. Nothing. File 714 didn't appear in any public records related to the fire or the subsequent investigation. I know someone who might be able to help, Elise said slowly. There's a librarian at the Dover Public Library, Gideon Marcus. He's been there for 40 years, keeps track of local history, newspaper archives, things that don't make it into official databases. She pulled up his contact information. He's suspicious of corporate types, doesn't trust anyone connected to money or power. But if there's buried information about Vale Corporation, he'd know where to find it. Solange was supposed to make another public appearance that afternoon. A family whose daughter had received treatment through the Community Renewal Initiative. Good publicity. Human interest story. She considered canceling. But Noah's treatment depended on her cooperation.
and the family didn't deserve to be stood up because she was spiraling.
Adrian was already there when she arrived. They hadn't spoken since the rooftop, hadn't acknowledged the document or the accusations, or the way everything had imploded in the space of a single text message. He looked like he hadn't slept. Good. The family, the Johnsons, welcomed them into a modest home in Wilmington's Browntown neighborhood. Their daughter, Emma, was 6 years old, recovering from a rare autoimmune condition that had required experimental treatment. She was alive because of the program. The gratitude was real. The impact was real. Emma showed Solange her drawings, crayon masterpieces of houses and families and sunshine, evidence of a future she almost didn't have. Mrs. Johnson cried when she thanked Adrian. "You saved her life. We'd given up hope, and you saved her." Solange watched Adrian take the woman's hands, watched him deflect credit to the medical team, watched him kneel down to Emma's level and tell her that her drawings were beautiful and she should keep making art. And she hated that she couldn't hate him. Hated that he seemed genuinely moved, genuinely invested, like this wasn't just performance or image management. Like he actually cared. They sat in his car outside the Johnson house afterward. Silence stretched between them, heavy, loaded with everything unsaid. Finally, Adrian spoke. "My brother Milo died when I was 19. Heart condition no one caught until it was too late. He was 14, smart, funny. He wanted to be a musician." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "He collapsed during a soccer game. We rushed him to the hospital. They did everything they could. It wasn't enough. He died 3 days later." Solange stared straight ahead. 2 weeks after his funeral, I found documents in my father's office, evidence that he'd known about the heater defects for months, that he'd delayed the recall, that people were dying, and he chose profit over lives. His voice cracked. I confronted him. We fought. He told me I didn't understand business, that sometimes acceptable losses were part of growth, that I was naive and weak and disappointing. What did you do? I threw the documents at him and told him he was a murderer. He had a heart attack 30 minutes later, died before the ambulance arrived. Adrian finally looked at her. I didn't handle anything, Solange. I destroyed my father for what he did, and I've spent 12 years trying to fix it. Her phone rang before she could respond. Vale Medical, Noah's care coordinator. Ice flooded her veins. Miss Carter, Noah had an adverse reaction to the initial treatment protocol. He's stable, but we need to adjust the approach. Dr. Rahman wants to meet with you this evening to discuss next steps. The world tilted. Define adverse reaction. His heart rhythm became irregular. We've stabilized him with medication, but the gene therapy triggered an unexpected immune response. It's not uncommon. We anticipated this possibility. Anticipated didn't make it less terrifying. She ended the call. Looked at Adrian. I need to go. I'll drive you. No. Solange. I said no. She got out of the car, started walking toward her own vehicle. He called after her. I know you don't trust me, but I'm not your enemy. She stopped, didn't turn around. Then who is? Have you ever accepted help from someone you didn't trust? That uncomfortable space where gratitude and suspicion live together? Where you need them but can't stand needing them? Tell me in the comments, because this tension, this impossible situation, is about to get so much worse. Noah looked smaller in the hospital bed. Pale, exhausted. The monitors showed numbers that Solange didn't fully understand, but knew weren't right. "Stop looking at me like I'm dying," he mumbled. "It's creepy." She almost laughed. Almost. "The doctor said you had a reaction." "Yeah, apparently my immune system is dramatic. Wonder where I got that from." She sat beside him through the night, watched his chest rise and fall, listened to machines track every heartbeat. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. Not a text, a phone call. Unknown number. Again. She stepped into the hallway. Answered. "Stop digging, Miss Carter." A man's voice. Older, unfamiliar. "Your brother is receiving excellent care. It would be unfortunate if complications arose due to distractions." Her blood turned to ice. Who is this? "Someone who knows what you're looking for. File 714 isn't a document. It's a person, a witness who testified and then vanished." The line went dead. 3 seconds later, a text appeared. "Gideon Marcus, Dover Public Library. He has answers. But be careful who you trust. Some fires were never meant to be investigated." Hi. The Vail Foundation Charity Gala was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the night Solange discovered that the devil she knew was protecting her from the one she didn't. She tried to cancel. Called Adrian's office 3 times. Left messages saying she couldn't attend, that Noah's condition made it impossible, that the deal didn't include formal events. His assistant called back within an hour. "Mr. Vail understands your concerns. However, the gala is the official launch of the Community Renewal Initiative. Major donors expect to meet you. Your absence would raise questions that could impact program funding." Translation: show up or risk Noah's treatment. So she showed up. The dress arrived that morning. Deep burgundy, the color of old wine and dried blood. Simple cut, elegant, the kind of dress that whispered money without shouting it. She looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. 12 years ago, she was a girl who wore thrift store jeans and her father's old hoodie, who studied for the SATs in a house that smelled like her mother's cooking. Now she was someone who wore designer dresses to galas hosted by the family that killed them. "Who are you becoming?" she whispered to her reflection. It didn't answer. Noah video called before she left. He looked better. The medication adjustments were working. Color back in his face, strength returning to his voice. He whistled when he saw her. "Damn, Sal, you clean up nice." "I look ridiculous." "You look like someone who belongs at a fancy party, which is weird, but also kind of cool." He grinned. "Mom and Dad would be so confused." The mention of their parents hit different tonight. "Yeah, they would." "Hey," his expression softened. "Whatever you're doing, whatever this costs you, I see it. I know it's not easy. But I'm going to get better, and then I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it was worth it." Her throat tightened. "You're already worth it, Noah." The Vail family estate sat outside Wilmington like a monument to inherited wealth. Old money. Generations of it. The kind of property that came with a name and a history and ghosts in every corner. Solange's car looked out of place among the Mercedes and Teslas in the circular driveway. She walked through doors that probably cost more than her apartment and entered a world designed to intimidate. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, a string quartet playing in the corner. waiters circulating with champagne that probably had a vintage year. Everyone looked comfortable here. She felt like an intruder. Adrian found her within minutes. He wore a tuxedo like he was born in one. Probably was. This was his world, his legacy, the empire his family built on secrets and blood. You came. Did I have a choice? Something pained crossed his face. There's always a choice. Not for people like me. Before he could respond, music shifted. The quartet began a waltz. Couples moved onto the open floor space. Adrian extended his hand. Tradition demands the host's dance. She stared at his hand like it might burn her. I don't know how to waltz. I'll lead. Just follow. She took his hand because refusing would cause a scene, and she'd already sacrificed too much to ruin it now over pride. They moved together across the floor. He was right. He led well. Confident but not controlling, guiding her through steps she'd never learned but somehow followed anyway. People are watching, she whispered. Let them. Their eyes met. Held. Something passed between them that felt dangerous and inevitable and completely wrong. This doesn't change anything, she said quietly. The document, the secrets, whatever you're not telling me. I know. I still don't trust you. I know that too. The music swelled. He pulled her slightly closer. Not inappropriate, just present. Like for these 3 minutes, they could pretend the world was simpler than it was. The song ended. Applause rippled through the room. Adrian stepped back. Professional distance restored. And that's when Solange saw her. A woman approaching from the crowd, late 50s, elegant in the way that only came from decades of privilege. Perfectly styled hair, jewelry that probably cost more than Noah's medical treatment. Her smile was sharp enough to cut. So this is the charity case my son's been parading around? Adrian went rigid. Mother. Victoria Vale. The matriarch. The power behind the empire. The woman who'd helped her husband bury bodies, figuratively speaking, for 30 years. She looked at Solange like she was evaluating merchandise. How quaint! You even taught her to dance. Victoria's voice dripped with condescension. Though I suppose anyone can learn steps with proper instruction. That's enough, Adrian said quietly. Is it? I'm simply welcoming our guest. She turned her attention fully to Solange. You must be so grateful for my son's generosity, taking on your brother's case, giving you this opportunity. Grateful. That word again. I'm aware of what your family's generosity costs, Solange replied evenly. Victoria's smile sharpened. Are you? How fascinating. She gestured to a waiter, took a glass of champagne, took her time sipping it while the silence stretched uncomfortable and deliberate. Adrian has always had a weakness for lost causes, stray dogs, broken things. He thinks he can fix the world by throwing money at it. Her eyes glittered. But some things stay broken no matter how much you spend. Some stains don't wash clean. Mother, I'd like a word with Miss Carter, alone. It wasn't a request. Adrian looked at Solange. She gave the smallest nod. She could handle this. She'd survived worse than a rich woman's condescension. He walked away reluctantly. Victoria waited until he was out of earshot. Then the smile disappeared entirely.
Let's drop the pleasantries, shall we? I know what you're doing. I know you're digging into the past. And I'm telling you now, stop.
Solange's hands shook. She excused herself before Victoria could continue, before the confrontation could escalate into something public and messy. She found a door leading to the gardens, slipped outside into cold October air. The estate gardens were excessive, even by wealthy standards. Sculpted hedges, rose bushes that probably had dedicated gardeners, stone pathways lit by carefully placed lights. She walked until the music from the gala faded. Found a bench, sat, tried to remember how to breathe. You shouldn't let her get to you. Adrian's voice. Of course he followed. Your mother is a nightmare. I know. He sat beside her, not touching, just present. She's been trying to control this family since my father died, trying to protect the legacy at all costs. Even if it means threatening people? Especially then. They sat in silence. The night air smelled like roses and impending winter. I should go, Solange said. This was a mistake. All of it. Probably. She stood. He caught her hand. But I'm not sorry you're here. She looked down at him, at his hand holding hers, at the expression on his face that looked too much like hope. Adrian. He stood, close enough to touch, close enough to kiss. Tell me to leave you alone and I will. Her phone buzzed. The moment shattered. She pulled it out. Unknown number. Again. An image attachment. She opened it. A scanned document. Vale Corporation letterhead. Dated 2 months before the fire. Memo, re Thornwell heater situation. She'd seen this before, but this version was different. Complete, not the partial image from the previous text. The full memo laid out the problem, the defect, the risk assessment, the recommendation to delay recall until Q2. Signed by Richard Vale and witnessed by Marcus Webb. But below the signatures was more, a section she hadn't seen. Implementation Team. Project Manager. A. Vale. Legal Oversight. Victoria Vale. Communications. Redacted. Timeline. Approved. Proceed as outlined. Adrian's name. Not just mentioned, listed as project manager. He was involved, directly. Not just his father telling him to handle it, he was part of the team that implemented the delayed recall. She looked up at him. He'd gone white. Solange, I can explain. You lied. Her voice shook. This whole time. You said you confronted your father. You said you weren't involved, but you were. You were part of it. I was 19. He told me it was a routine business decision. I didn't know. You knew enough to be on the implementation team. Tears burned her eyes. Was any of this real? The program? The confession about your brother? Or am I just another problem you're managing? Another person you're trying to pay off so they'll stop asking questions? He reached for her. Please, let me. She ran. Through the gardens, past startled guests, out to the circular driveway where valets looked confused as she demanded her car. She was 3 miles down the road when her phone buzzed again. A location, an address in Dover, and 3 words. The truth awaits. Marcus Webb was supposed to be dead. But ghosts don't send text messages. And the truth Solange found in that Dover basement changed everything, including who the real villain was. 2 hours on dark highways. Solange drove like she was being chased. Maybe she was. By truth, by lies, by 12 years of believing she understood what happened the night her parents died. The address led to a run-down neighborhood on the outskirts of Dover. Houses that had seen better decades. Chain-link fences, cars on blocks and driveways. Nothing about this screamed dangerous conspiracy. It looked like a place where people minded their business and asked no questions. She parked outside a small ranch house with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn. Almost didn't get out of the car. This could be a trap, a setup, someone luring her out here for reasons she couldn't begin to guess. But Noah's face flashed in her mind, the monitors tracking his struggling heart, the treatment that depended on her cooperation with people who'd been lying from the start. She needed to know the truth. All of it. She knocked on the door. Waited. Footsteps inside. Slow. Cautious. The door opened. A man stood in the doorway. 63. Maybe older. Gray hair. Tired eyes that had seen too much. A scar ran down the left side of his face. Old but prominent. The kind of scar that came from serious trauma. He looked at her like he'd been expecting her. "Solange Carter, you look just like your mother." Her breath caught. "You knew her?" "I knew the case file. Studied every victim, every family destroyed by those goddamn heaters." He stepped aside. "You'd better come in." The house was small, neat despite its exterior. Photographs on the walls, but none recent. Everything frozen in time around 12 years ago. "Who are you?" Solange asked. "Marcus Webb. I was a quality control engineer at Thornwell Manufacturing. I found the heater defects, reported them, and Richard Vale decided I was a problem that needed to be solved." He gestured to the scar on his face. "This is from the car accident that killed me. Except I didn't die. Came close. Spent 3 months in a hospital under a fake name, while Vale Corporation's lawyers told my family I was dead and paid them enough money to bury an empty casket and not ask questions." Solange's legs felt weak. She sat on his worn couch. "Why?" "Because I threatened to go public, to tell every news outlet that Vale knew about the defects months before the recall, that they'd run a cost-benefit analysis and decided paying wrongful death settlements was cheaper than fixing the problem immediately." He pulled out a folder, handed it to her. Documents, emails, meeting minutes, a paper trail that proved everything. 37 people died because Richard Vale wanted to protect his fourth quarter earnings. Your parents, 29 others, and 6 more after the delayed recall finally happened. "Adrian Vale," Solange said. "He was on the implementation team. I saw the memo." Marcus's expression shifted. "No, he wasn't." "I saw his name." "You saw forgery." Marcus opened his laptop, pulled up a document. "This is the original memo, the one I kept before everything went to hell." He turned the screen toward her. The memo looked identical. Same date, same content, same signatures. Except the implementation team was different. Project Manager, V. Legal Oversight, External Counsel, Communications, M. Harrison. No mention of Adrian. Victoria Vale ran the cover-up, Marcus explained. She was Richard's right hand, the one who actually managed the delayed recall, who coordinated the legal strategy, who ordered my accident. Solange's world tilted.
Then why does the document I received show Adrian's name?
Because Victoria's been rewriting history since Richard died, creating evidence that implicates Adrian, controlling him through guilt and fabricated proof that he was involved.
Marcus leaned forward. Adrian was 19, away at college. His brother had just died. He came home for the funeral and found documents in his father's office, the real ones. He confronted Richard. They fought. Richard had a heart attack and died. He paused. Adrian spent the next 12 years thinking he killed his father. Victoria encouraged that belief, used it to control him, to make sure he'd never stray too far from the family legacy. But he's been trying to make amends, Solange whispered. The Community Renewal Initiative, the medical program. Because he blames himself for not stopping it sooner, for not knowing what his father was doing. He's been trying to fix it, quietly, anonymously. Marcus pulled up financial records. He's the one who funded my relocation, who pays my medical bills under a shell company, who's been protecting me from Victoria for 12 years. Solange couldn't breathe. Everything she believed, everything she'd accused Adrian of, everything she'd hated him for.
Wrong. All of it wrong.
Victoria Vale was the architect, the monster, the one who'd buried Marcus, covered up the defects, and spent 12 years manipulating her own son with fabricated evidence.
The texts I've been receiving, Solange said slowly. The photographs, the documents, that was Victoria?
She wanted you to discover just enough truth to destroy Adrian, to make you hate him, to blow up the initiative and ruin any chance he had at redemption.
Marcus's expression was grim.
She's been losing control. Adrian's been pulling away, building something that doesn't serve the family legacy. She needed to stop him, and you were the perfect weapon. Solange stood, sat back down, stood again. She'd run from Adrian, accused him, looked at him with hatred and suspicion while he'd been telling the truth the whole time. I have to. She couldn't finish, couldn't think.
Go to him, Marcus said gently. Tell him what you know. But be careful. Victoria doesn't lose gracefully, and she's got more resources than you can imagine. Solange stood at his door, hand on the knob.
Why tell me this? Why risk Victoria finding out you're alive? Marcus smiled. It was sad. Your parents were good people, Solange. I read their victim statements, letters from friends, the life they built. They deserved better than what happened. He paused. They'd want you to know the truth, all of it, but they'd also want you to know that forgiveness isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. Family, pause with me here. Because this moment, when everything you thought you knew shatters, this is where real courage lives. It's not in holding on to hate. It's in being willing to see the truth, even when it costs you everything you've been using to protect yourself. If this story is hitting different for you right now, let me know in the comments. Tell me about a time you had to choose between being right and being free. Solange was halfway back to Wilmington when her phone rang. Elise! Her voice was wrong. Tight. Terrified. Sal, you need to get to Vale Medical, now. Ice flooded her veins. Noah? A pause that lasted forever. His heart is failing. They're prepping for emergency surgery. She was already pressing the accelerator to the floor. I'm coming, I'm coming. Another call beeped through.
Adrian's number, she answered. His voice was ragged. Solange, my mother. She knows where you went. She's pulling Noah's funding. She's stopping the surgery. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. She can't do that. We have a deal. She's Victoria Vale. She can do anything. His voice broke. But I'm not gonna let her. The line went dead. Victoria Vale had spent 30 years building an empire on secrets and silence. She'd buried witnesses, destroyed evidence, and controlled her own son like a puppet. But she'd never faced an enemy like Solange Carter, a woman with nothing left to lose. Solange drove like death itself was chasing her. Maybe it was. 2 hours between Dover and Wilmington. 2 hours of highway lights blurring through tears. 2 hours of praying to parents who couldn't hear her and a God who'd stopped listening 12 years ago. But the prayers came anyway. Please, please, please. Her phone kept buzzing. Elise with updates. Adrian with promises. Unknown numbers she didn't answer because she couldn't handle one more revelation, one more truth, one more weapon aimed at her heart. All that mattered was Noah. Noah, whose heart was failing faster than the doctors predicted. Noah, who'd survived a fire and 12 years of poverty, and a sister who tried her best but never felt like it was enough. Noah, who was 17 and supposed to have decades left. Not hours. The Wilmington skyline appeared in the distance. City lights reflected off the Delaware River like scattered prayers. She pressed harder on the accelerator, waited for sirens, for cops, for someone to stop her. No one did. Adrian found his mother in Richard's old study. It had been hers for 12 years now, since the night his father died and she'd stepped seamlessly into power, like she'd been waiting for the opportunity her whole marriage. She sat behind the massive desk, sipping brandy. Calm. Always calm. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, she said without looking up. You forged the documents. His voice shook with rage he'd been holding back for years. You made me believe I was involved in the cover-up. You've been controlling me with fake evidence for 12 years. Victoria set down her glass, met his eyes. I did what was necessary to protect this family. You destroyed people. Marcus Webb. The families who died. Solange. That girl is a threat, Adrian. Her entire existence is a reminder of your father's mistakes. His mistakes? Adrian's hands clenched into fists. He killed people, Mother. 37 people died because he chose profit over safety, and you helped him bury it. I protected our legacy. There's a difference. She stood, walked to the window overlooking the estate grounds. Your father built this empire. I ensured it survived his death. Every decision I made, including the ones you hate, kept this family intact. Kept you from being destroyed by investigations and lawsuits and public trials. By lying to me. By making me think I killed him. Victoria turned. You did kill him. Your self-righteous confrontation triggered his heart attack. I simply helped you carry appropriate guilt. The cruelty was breathtaking. I'm done, Adrian said quietly. With the lies, with your manipulation, with protecting a legacy built on graves. Are you? How noble! She picked up her phone. One call to the hospital board and Noah Carter's surgery stops.
One call, and that girl loses everything. Again.
What do you want? Adrian's voice was ice.
Victoria smiled. Send her away. End this ridiculous program. Stop pretending you can wash our name clean with charity. Be the son your father raised.
And if I refuse?
Then watch her brother die, knowing you could have saved him. Silence stretched between them. 30 years of manipulation. 30 years of control. 30 years of Victoria Vale getting exactly what she wanted through whatever means necessary. Adrian pulled out his phone. Victoria's smile widened. Smart choice. He didn't dial. Instead, he pulled up a document, turned the screen toward her. Transfer of controlling shares. Vale Medical Corporation. Effective immediately, I'm releasing my stake to an independent healthcare foundation. By tomorrow morning, you won't control the board. You won't control the hospital. You won't control anything. The color drained from Victoria's face. You wouldn't. Watch me. He hit send. The document processed. Legal mechanisms clicking into place that would dismantle her power structure by dawn. You're destroying everything your father built. No, I'm destroying everything you corrupted. He moved toward the door. Dad was a lot of things. Greedy, negligent, morally bankrupt. But you're worse, because you knew better and chose this anyway. Victoria's composure finally cracked. You ungrateful, weak, pathetic! I spent my whole life trying to earn your love, Adrian interrupted. His voice was steady now, final. I finally realized you can't earn what someone refuses to give. He walked out, left her screaming his name, left her alone in the study with her brandy and her empire crumbling. Solange burst through Vale Medical's emergency entrance at 11:47 p.m. Elise was waiting, face drawn, exhaustion carved into every line. Where is he? OR? They're waiting for authorization to proceed. What authorization? We have a contract. Victoria Vale issued an order to the hospital board 2 hours ago. All community renewal cases suspended pending review. They legally can't operate without board approval. Solange's world tilted. How long does he have? Elise's expression said everything. Soul! How long? Hours, maybe less. His heart is deteriorating faster than we've ever seen. If we don't operate now. Adrian appeared at the end of the hallway, running, tie gone, shirt untucked, looking more undone than she'd ever seen him. It's done, he gasped. The board just received notice. Victoria no longer has controlling authority. The surgery is approved. Elise's phone buzzed. She looked at it, looked at Adrian, looked at Solange. Dr. Rahman is scrubbing in. We're going now. The surgical team materialized. Efficient, practiced. They wheeled Noah past on a gurney. He was unconscious, pale, hooked to machines that breathed for him. Solange grabbed his hand as he passed. I'm here. You're not alone. You're never alone. They took him through doors she couldn't follow. Hours passed like years. Solange sat in the surgical waiting room with Adrian beside her. Not touching, not speaking, just present. Elise brought coffee. Neither of them drank. The sun rose over Wilmington, golden light spilling through hospital windows. Morning arriving like it had a right to exist, while Noah fought for his life in an operating room 3 floors up. Adrian finally spoke. I'm sorry. For all of it. The secrets, my mother, the position this put you in.
Solange didn't look at him. If he dies, he won't. You can't promise that.
No, but I can promise I'll spend the rest of my life making sure this never happens to another family. Family? There's a moment in every battle where someone has to choose their own safety or someone else's survival. Adrian just gave up everything. His fortune, his family, his entire identity. For a woman he's known for weeks.
Some call that foolish.
Others call it love. What do you call it?
Tell me in the comments. The operating room doors opened at 6:23 a.m.
Dr. Rahman emerged, surgical mask pulled down.
His face was unreadable. Solange stood. Adrian caught her arm to steady her. The surgeon walked toward them. Solange couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't exist in the space between this moment and the next. Dr. Rahman stopped in front of her, looked her in the eyes, and spoke. Victoria Vale didn't just attack Solange, she set fire to her entire existence. Every lie, every manipulation, every carefully placed piece of evidence designed to make the world believe Solange was the villain. But she forgot one thing. Solange had survived flames before. Dr. Rahman smiled. Actually smiled. The procedure was successful. Noah's heart is stable. With proper care and monitoring, he should live a full, healthy life. Solange's legs gave out. Adrian caught her, held her while 12 years of held breath released in waves of sobs that came from somewhere deeper than grief, deeper than relief. From the place where hope lives when you've forgotten it exists. He made it, she whispered against Adrian's shoulder. He made it. He made it, Adrian confirmed. They stood in that hallway holding each other while the sun rose and the world continued like it had a right to keep spinning after stopping completely. But the relief lasted exactly 4 hours. Long enough for Solange to see Noah in recovery. Long enough to watch him open his eyes and croak, "Did we win?" Long enough to laugh through tears and say, "Yeah, little brother, we won." Then her phone started buzzing. News alerts, social media notifications, text messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. She opened the first notification. Breaking. Vale medical whistleblower claims program fraud. Spokesperson Solange Carter named in investigation. Her blood turned to ice. The article was everywhere. Every news site, every social media platform, trending nationwide within 2 hours. Someone, Victoria, had leaked documents suggesting Solange manipulated her way into the Community Renewal Initiative. Forged medical records to make Noah's case seem more urgent. Exaggerated her backstory for sympathy. Deceived donors for personal gain. The evidence was masterful. Bank records showing deposits to Solange's account that she'd never made. Emails she'd never sent negotiating payment for her participation. Text messages to associates discussing how to work the system. All fake. All perfectly, meticulously, criminally fake. But the public didn't know that. News vans appeared outside Vale Medical within hours, reporters shouting questions, social media ablaze with accusations. Con artist. Fraud. Using her sick brother for sympathy. Solange watched from Noah's hospital room window, saw her face on every screen, saw strangers who'd never met her deciding who she was and what she deserved. "Turn it off," Noah said from his bed, still weak but stronger than yesterday. "Soul, stop watching." She couldn't. 12 years of building a life. 12 years of quiet survival. 12 years of trying to be good and honest and worthy of the second chance her parents didn't get. Erased in 4 hours? Adrian appeared in the doorway. His expression was pure rage. "She leaked it. My mother. She had this prepared as a backup plan in case I defied her." He held up his phone. "But I have something better. Marcus Webb is willing to come forward, publicly, with everything." Adrian called a press conference for 2 p.m. Stood before the same cameras that had been calling Solange a fraud and told them everything. His father's crimes, the cover-up, Victoria's manipulation, Marcus Webb's testimony, the forged documents used to control him, the fabricated evidence against Solange. All of it. He held nothing back. "Solange Carter is not a fraud. She's a survivor of my family's negligence. Everything you've seen in the past 4 hours is a lie constructed by my mother to destroy a woman whose only crime was demanding accountability." The reporters erupted with questions. Adrian ignored them, kept talking. "The Community Renewal Initiative is real. The patients it's helped are real. The medical treatments are real. What's fake is the narrative that this program exists for publicity rather than impact." He paused, met the cameras directly. "I'm ashamed of what my family did. I'm ashamed it took me this long to stand against it publicly, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right, starting with the truth." It should have worked. It would have worked. Except Victoria was prepared. Within an hour, she released Adrian's medical records. Therapy sessions from his 20s, depression diagnoses, medication for anxiety and PTSD following his brother's death. Painted him as unstable, unreliable, suffering a breakdown. "My son is unwell," Victoria told reporters from the estate, tears in her eyes. Perfect maternal concern. "His accusations are the result of grief and mental illness, not reality. I'm seeking emergency conservatorship to get him the help he needs." The narrative shifted again. Now Adrian was the unstable one, the unreliable narrator, the son having a public breakdown. Vale Medical's board convened an emergency session. Victoria still had allies, still had leverage, still had enough votes to push through a motion suspending all community renewal funding pending investigation. Noah's treatment would continue. The surgery was complete. But every other patient in the program was suddenly in limbo. Families who'd been promised hope. Patients who'd been given second chances. Children who might actually live. All suspended because Victoria Vale decided to burn everything rather than lose control. Solange stood in Noah's hospital room watching the news coverage and felt something inside her shift. She'd spent 12 years being careful, being quiet, staying small enough not to attract attention, surviving rather than living. She was done being small. "I need to make a statement," she told Elise. Her friend looked concerned. "Saul, the media is—" "I don't care. She wants to destroy me? Fine, but I'm not going quietly." Adrian appeared. "Solange, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She met his eyes. "You stood up for me. Now let me stand up for myself." She walked out of the hospital room. Took the elevator down to the lobby, where reporters still swarmed. Stepped outside.
Cameras turned toward her like predators sensing prey.
Before Solange could speak, someone else did.
Miss Carter has been unfairly maligned by fabricated evidence.
Marcus Webb.
63 years old, scarred, tired, standing before cameras for the first time in 12 years.
My name is Marcus Webb. I was reported dead in a car accident 12 years ago after threatening to expose Vail Corporation's negligence. I survived, and I'm here to testify that Victoria Vail orchestrated a cover-up that killed 37 people. Another voice joined. I'm Gideon Marcus, Dover Public Library. I have documented evidence of Vail Corporation's systematic suppression of safety complaints dating back 15 years.
Another.
Dr. Elise Carter, Wilmington General Cardiology. I can verify that Noah Carter's medical records are genuine and that Solange Carter has acted with complete integrity throughout his treatment. Another. And another. Families from the Community Renewal Initiative. Patients whose lives were saved. Donors who believed in the program's mission. A crowd forming around Solange, protecting her, supporting her. Victoria Vail had money and power and lawyers. But Solange had something stronger. People who knew the truth. Family, let me pause here. Because this is that moment, the one where everything seems lost, where the enemy is stronger, richer, more powerful, where giving up would be so easy. But you're still here, still watching, still hoping they find a way. And maybe that's because you've been there too, when the world counted you out, when everyone said it was over. Tell me in the comments, what kept you fighting when everything said stop? The crowd grew. The reporters shifted their questions. The narrative began to change. Then, Solange's phone rang.
Vail Medical. Noah's care team.
Her heart stopped. Miss Carter, there's been a complication with Noah's post-surgical recovery. His heart rhythm is becoming irregular again. We need you here immediately. She ran. Behind her, Adrian shouted her name. The world blurred. Not again. Not after they'd won. Please, not again. 2 hours. 120 minutes between Noah and eternity. Solange had faced impossible odds before, but this time, winning required something she'd never been willing to give: complete surrender. Noah's monitors screamed warnings. Irregular rhythm, dropping blood pressure, his body rejecting something about the procedure, or reacting to stress his weakened system couldn't handle. Dr. Rahman worked with controlled urgency. The gene therapy is fighting his immune system. We need to intervene now or risk complete cardiac failure. What kind of intervention? Solange's voice barely worked. Another surgery, immediate, to implant a temporary support device while his body adjusts to the treatment. How immediate? He checked his watch. We have maybe 2 hours before the window closes. Elise grabbed Solange's hand. The surgical team is ready, but Sol Victoria still has enough board influence to delay authorization. She's not done fighting. Adrian burst into the room. I'm handling it. I still have access to emergency medical override protocols. I can authorize the surgery myself. She'll sue you, Solange said. She'll claim you abused your authority. I don't care. His voice was steel. Let her sue. Let her drag me through every court in Delaware. Noah lives first. We deal with consequences after. But Solange knew Victoria, knew that she didn't lose gracefully, Knew that every move Adrian made would be countered with something worse. Knew that this battle wouldn't end until someone surrendered completely. "I need to talk to her," Solange said. "Your mother. Alone." Everyone started objecting at once. "Absolutely not. Saul, she'll destroy you." "We have other options." "No." Solange's voice cut through the protests. "We don't. She wants me gone. She wants Adrian controlled. She wants her empire protected. And she'll burn down everything, including Noah, to get it." She looked at Adrian. "You can override her authorization, but what happens in 6 months when she finds a legal way to reverse it? What happens to the next patient, the next family?" He didn't answer, because they both knew. Victoria would never stop, would never give up, would spend years and millions ensuring that anyone who defied her paid the price. Unless someone gave her what she actually wanted. "Where is she?" Solange asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. "The estate. She hasn't left since the press conference. She's waiting." "For what?" "For you to come to her. For you to beg." Solange stood. "Then let's not keep her waiting." "Solange." She kissed Noah's forehead. He was unconscious. Monitors beeping irregular warnings. "I promised I'd never let you face fear alone. I'm keeping that promise." She walked out before anyone could stop her. Adrian followed. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Victoria Vale waited in the same study where Adrian had confronted her days earlier. Nothing had changed. Same desk, same brandy, same absolute certainty that she controlled everything that mattered. She looked up when Solange entered. Smiled. "I wondered how long it would take you to realize this was inevitable." Solange didn't sit, didn't accept the power play of choosing the offered chair or standing uncomfortably. She walked directly to the desk, placed her hands on its surface, met Victoria's eyes. "What do you want?" "You know what I want. I want you gone, completely. Sign a non-disclosure agreement, disappear from Adrian's life, never speak of the fire, the cover-up, the program, any of it. And if I do that, Noah gets his surgery. Your brother will receive excellent care regardless. I'm not a monster." Victoria's smile sharpened. "But every other patient in the Community Renewal Initiative, their futures depend on your cooperation." The cruelty was breathtaking. Hold one life hostage. Make it about dozens more. You're willing to let sick people die because your son defied you? I'm willing to protect what my husband built, what I've maintained, what Adrian seems determined to destroy with his misguided guilt. Victoria stood, walked to the window. He thinks he's being noble, heroic, but all he's doing is painting a target on this family, inviting lawsuits, investigations, public trials that will drag the Vale name through mud. She turned back. You're the catalyst. Remove you, and he'll remember where he belongs. Solange pulled out her phone. Opened a voice recording app. Hit record. What are you doing? Victoria's eyes narrowed. Getting your confession on record. Every word you just said. Threatening patients. Admitting to the cover-up. All of it. She held up the phone. I walked in here with nothing to lose, Victoria. You already destroyed my reputation. Already tried to erase my brother. Already spent 12 years making sure my family's story stayed buried. Solange's voice was steady. But you have everything to lose. your reputation, your company, your freedom.
Victoria laughed. That recording will never hold up in court.
Maybe not, but it'll hold up on every news channel, every social media platform, every podcast desperate for a scandal. The court of public opinion doesn't need legal standards.
The smile faded from Victoria's face.
You wouldn't. Watch me.
Solange stopped the recording, saved it, uploaded it to cloud storage.
I've already sent copies to 3 journalists, 2 lawyers, and Marcus Webb. If anything happens to me, Noah, or anyone in that program, it goes public automatically. It was a bluff.
Partial bluff, anyway.
She'd sent the recording to Elise with instructions, but no journalists, no automatic release. But Victoria didn't know that. The older woman's composure cracked. Just slightly. What do you want? Release the surgery authorization, clear the program for permanent funding, and leave Adrian alone.
And in exchange?
Solange took a breath. I disappear. Not because you forced me, because I choose to protect the people I love from your poison. The study door burst open. Adrian stood there, breathing hard. He'd heard everything. No, Solange, you don't get to sacrifice yourself. Not for me, not for anyone. He walked past her, faced his mother. It's over, Mother. I've already transferred my controlling shares. By tomorrow morning, you won't have enough board votes to block anything. Victoria's face went white. You wouldn't destroy your own family. You destroyed it years ago. I'm just making it official. He pulled out legal documents, placed them on her desk. Permanent funding for the Community Renewal Initiative. Protected from board interference. Managed by an independent foundation that you have no control over. His voice was cold, final. You taught me how to be ruthless, how to win at any cost. Congratulations, I learned. Victoria stared at the documents, at her son, at the empire she'd controlled crumbling under his signature. You'll regret this. Probably, but I'll regret it while doing the right thing. That's more than you can say. He turned to Solange. Come on, we have a surgery to authorize. Victoria didn't scream. Didn't throw things or threaten lawsuits or promise revenge. She simply said, You were always weak, just like your brother, just like your father became at the end. Adrian stopped at the door. Milo wasn't weak. He was kind. There's a difference. One you'll never understand. He walked out. Solange followed. Behind them, Victoria Vale sat alone in her study with her brandy and her bitterness. The empire she'd built on lies crumbling. The son she'd controlled finally free. The war lost to a girl from Dover who refused to stay buried. Noah's surgery began at 4:17 p.m. Solange watched through the observation window. Adrian beside her, their shoulders touching. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For choosing right over easy. He took her hand. You made it possible. Hours passed. The surgical team worked. Solange didn't move from the window. Finally, the doors opened. Dr. Rahman emerged. Pulled down his mask. Smiled. He's stable. The device is working. He's gonna make it. The surgeon's face held the answer to 12 years of prayers, 12 years of promises, 12 years of surviving one fire only to walk into another. And when she finally spoke, Solange Carter learned that some stories don't end in flames.
Some stories rise.
He made it! Dr. Rahman's smile was genuine, tired but genuine. The procedure was successful. The support device is functioning perfectly. Noah's body is accepting the gene therapy. With proper monitoring and care, he should live a full, healthy life. Solange's knees buckled. Adrian caught her, again, like he had that first night, like he'd been doing for weeks. She sobbed against his shoulder. 12 years of fear releasing in waves. He made it, she whispered.
He made it, Adrian confirmed.
And for the first time in 12 years, Solange believed in tomorrow. She was there when Noah opened his eyes, blinked against the recovery room lights, saw her face, managed a weak smile. Did we win? She laughed through tears. Yeah, little brother, we won again. Good, because I'm really tired of hospitals. He squeezed her hand, looked past her to where Adrian stood in the doorway. That's him? The guy? That's him. Noah studied Adrian with 17-year-old skepticism, despite the exhaustion and the medical equipment and the fact that he'd just survived his second major surgery in a week. You hurt her, and I'll find a way to make your life miserable, heart condition or not. Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. Noted. Also, thanks for the whole saving my life thing. You're welcome. Noah closed his eyes. Gonna sleep now. Sol, stop hovering. It's weird. But he didn't let go of her hand. The evidence went public within days. Marcus Webb's testimony, the forged documents, the systematic cover-up spanning 15 years. Victoria Vale faced investigation, potential charges, absolute social destruction. Her allies abandoned her. The board voted her out. Shareholders demanded accountability. She retreated to a European estate, silent and bitter. The empire she'd built crumbled without Adrian's protection. News outlets called it justice. Solange called it insufficient. Because nothing would bring back the 37 people who died. Nothing would give her back her parents, or Noah his childhood, or all the families that lost loved ones. But it was something. And sometimes was enough. Adrian rebuilt the Community Renewal Initiative from the ground up. Real oversight, transparent funding, no corporate interference. The foundation he created funded experimental treatments for patients who couldn't afford them, actually helped people, actually made a difference. My father built an empire on lies, he told a reporter 6 months later. I'm building something smaller but real. Elise accepted a leadership position at the foundation. Better resources, better pay, real impact. She made Solange promise monthly dinners. Non-negotiable. I didn't survive this drama to lose my best friend. Gideon, the librarian, attended Noah's hospital homecoming party, pulled Solange aside. Your parents would be proud, not because you won, but because you stayed good while fighting. It was the first time she'd cried happy tears about them. The first time their memory felt like a blessing instead of a wound. Solange and Noah returned to their apartment in Trolley Square. Same small space, same cramped kitchen, same creaky floors. But it felt different now, lighter. We could afford somewhere bigger, Noah said. Adrian had offered, multiple times. She shook her head. This is home. We built it from nothing. That means something. Noah understood.
They'd survived a fire, survived poverty, survived a battle with an empire. This apartment was proof they'd made it, that they'd built a life worth keeping.
Yeah, Noah agreed. It does mean something.
They ordered pizza, watched bad movies, existed in the quiet peace of survival. 3 months later, Solange stood on the same rooftop where she and Adrian first talked. Really talked. Without cameras or audiences or the weight of secrets between them. The Wilmington skyline glittered below. The Delaware River reflected city lights. Adrian appeared beside her. "I had a feeling you'd be here." She smiled. "I like the view." "So do I." He wasn't looking at the skyline. They stood in comfortable silence. Two people who'd fought their way through fire to find something neither expected. "I spent my whole life trying to fix what my family broke," Adrian said quietly. "But you showed me that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building something worth surviving for." Solange looked at him. This man who'd given up everything, who'd chosen right over easy, who'd seen her at her worst and stayed anyway. "I spent 12 years afraid of fire, afraid of losing, afraid of needing anyone." She took his hand. "You didn't save me, Adrian, but you reminded me I was worth saving." He pulled her close. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you." She smiled. "That sounds like a promise." He kissed her forehead. "It is." Noah sat in a college lecture hall 6 months later. First day of freshman year. Pre-med. He texted Solange. "Day 1. Gonna become a heart surgeon. Seems fitting." She responded, "Save some lives, genius. I'll be here when you get home." He smiled, opened his notebook, started his future. Solange stood at a memorial plaque in Dover, Delaware. A small park now stood where her childhood home once burned. Community funded, simple, beautiful. The plaque read, "In memory of those lost to the January 14th fire, may their legacy inspire safer tomorrows." She placed flowers. Roses, her mother's favorite. Spoke to parents she couldn't see, but somehow still felt. "I kept my promise, Mom. Dad, I didn't let him face fear alone. And somewhere along the way, I stopped facing it alone too." The sun was setting, golden and warm. She turned to leave. Adrian waited by the car. Patient, present, permanent. There are moments in life that split your world into before and after. Solange Carter had lived through fire, loss, and darkness so deep she forgot what light felt like. But she learned something in the ashes. Some flames destroy, and some flames forge. The ones that don't kill you become the light you carry forward. She lost her parents to one fire. She found her future in another. And when people asked her how she survived, how she rebuilt, how she learned to trust and love again, she always gave the same answer. You don't outrun fire. You learn to rise from it. Family, if this story touched something in you, if Solange's journey reminded you of your own battles, your own promises, your own rising from ashes, I need you to do something. Subscribe! Not because I'm asking, but because stories like this aren't over. There are more tales waiting. Tales of love, sacrifice, family, and the impossible strength we find when we have something worth fighting for. Join this family, because the next story, it might be the one you needed to hear.
And if you're still here, still watching, still feeling, drop a comment. Tell me what this story meant to you. Tell me about your fires, your promises, your rising. Until next time, this is Tales That Echo, reminding you, some stories don't just end. They echo.